محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال يا قوم أرأيتم إن كنت على بينة من ربي وآتاني منه رحمة فمن ينصرني من الله إن عصيته فما تزيدوني غير تخسير. ويا قوم هذه ناقة الله لكم آية فذروها تأكل في أرض الله ولا تمسوها بسوء فيأخذكم عذاب قريب. فأخروها فقال تمتعوا في داركم 3 أيام ذلك وعد غير مكذوب. فلما جاء أمرنا نجينا صالحا والذين آمنوا معه برحمة منا ومن خزي يومئذ إن ربك هو القوي العزيز. وأخذ الذين ظلموا الصيحة فأصبحوا في ديارهم جاثمين كأن لم يغنوا فيها ألا إن ثمود كفروا ربهم ألا بعدا لثمود. ولقد جاءت رسلنا إبراهيم بالبشرى قالوا سلاما قال سلام فما لبث أن جاء بعجل حنيظ. فلما رأى أيديهم لا تصل إليه نكرهم وأوجس منهم خيفة قالوا لا تخف إنا أرسلنا إلى قوم لوط. وامرأته قائمة فضحكت فبشرناها بإسحاق ومن وراء إسحاق يعقوب. قالت يا ويلتى ألد وأنا عجوز وهذا بعلي شيخا إن هذا لشيء عجيب. قالوا تعجبين من أمر الله رحمة الله وبركاته عليكم أهل البيت إنه حميد مجيد. فلما ذهب عن إبراهيم الراء وجاءته البشرى يجادلنا في قوم لوط إن إبراهيم لحليم أواه منيب. يا إبراهيم أعرض عن هذا إنه قد جاء أمر ربك وإنهم آتيهم عذاب غير مردود. ولما جاءت رسلنا لوطا سيء بهم وضاق بهم ذرعا وقال هذا يوم عصيب. وجاءه قومه يهرعون إليه ومن قبل كانوا يعملون السيئات. قال يا قوم هؤلاء بناتي هن أطهر لكم فاتقوا الله ولا تخزوني في ضيفي أليس منكم رجل رشيد. قالوا لقد علمت ما لنا في بناتك من حق وإنك لتعلم ما نريد. قال لو أن لي بكم قوة أو آوي إلى ركن شديد. قالوا يا لوط إنا رسل ربك لن يصلوا إليك فأسر بأهلك بقطع من الليل ولا يلتفت منكم أحد إلا امرأتك إنه مصيبها ما أصابهم إن موعدهم الصبح أليس الصبح بقريب فلما جاء أمرنا جعلنا عاليها سافلها وأمطرنا عليها حجارة من سجيل منضود مسومة عند ربك وما هي من الظالمين ببعيد وإلى مدين أخاهم شعيبا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره ولا تنقصوا المكيال والميزان إني أراكم بخير وإني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم محيط صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. These were the ayats from Surah Hud, verses number 63 to verses number 84. Bar Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Please recite another salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. For the love of the Holy Prophet and his holy family, please recite the second salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. For the reappearance of our awaited Savior, please recite the third salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. The marsiya that I have tonight is about the protests and the grief that a daughter has after her father has been killed. And she's asking for her father. And in the poet tries to, especially in the sixth line and the fourth line and the fifth line, the poet tries to link what it is that she's asking her father for. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Jus panje tan kisi se तवल्ला न चाहिए गैर अज़ खुदा किसी का भरोसा गैर अज़ खुदा किसी का भरोसा न चाहिए एक दर पे बैठ गर है तवक्कल करीम पर अल्लाह के फ़कीर को फेरा अल्लाह के फ़कीर को फेरा न चाहिए सुगरा ने शाहिदी को लिखा ख़त तो भेजिए गर चाहते नहीं हमें अच्छा न चाहिए दो बेटियां तो पास हो एक जां बलब्बईद मैं सच कहूँ ये आपको बाबा मैं सच कहूँ ये आपको बाबा न चाहिए कहती थी फिजा शाम में बाजारियों हटो आले रसूल पर सितम ऐसा न चाहिए ये कौन बीबियाँ हैं तुम्हें कुछ खबर नहीं ज़हरा की बेटियों का ज़हरा की बेटियों का तमाशा न चाहिए मरक़ा चराग़ दाग़ से रोशन रहे अनीस शब को अकेले घर में अंधेरा शब को अकेले घर में اندھیرا نہ چاہیے جز جتن کسی سے. صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد وعجل. کہتی تھی رن میں آ کے سکینہ جواب دو، جانے نبی و فاطمہ زہرا جواب دو، کیوں سو رہے ہو خاک پر تنہا جواب دو، آئی ہوں تم کو ڈھونڈنے اس جا جواب دو، مرتی ہوں غم سے میرے مسیحا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، زخمی ہوئے ہیں کان میرے چھن گئے گوہر، کس سے کہوں زخموں میں ہے درد بیشتر، فریاد تم سے کرنے میں آئی ہوں اے پدر، ہے قابل ملاحظہ ہے حال سر بسر، دیکھو یہ خون بھرا ہوا کرتا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، روتے تھے آپ میں جو کبھی کرتی تھی فغاں، گودی میں لے کے پیار سے کرتے تھے یوں بیان، قربان تیرے آنکھوں کے آنسو نہ کر رواں، اب میرا رونا اور یہ غم کھانا بابا جان، کیوں آپ کو ہوا ہے گوارا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، روتی تھی میں تو رہتے نہ تھے آپ بے منائے، ملبوس اپنے ہاتھ سے اکثر مجھے پہنائے، سوتے نہ تھے بغیر مجھے سینے پر سلائے، اب بے سکینہ اے شہ ابرار ہائے ہائے، کیسا قرار آپ کو آیا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، قیدی بنا کے شام کو لے جاتے ہیں ہمیں، پرسا نہیں ہے کوئی کہ کچھ اس سے ہم کہیں، فریاد غمزدوں کی نا حضرت بھی گر سنے، کب تک ان آفتوں میں رہے آہ کیا کرے، کیا کہہ رہی ہوں سیدے والا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بے گور کیوں پڑے ہیں تمہارے رفیق سب، لاشیں پہ جلتی ریت پہ میں دیکھتی ہوں جب، ہوتا ہے میرے دل پہ دوبالا غم و تعب، دفناتا ان کو کوئی نہیں اس کا کیا سبب، کیوں بے کفن ہر ایک کا ہے لاشا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، آتی ہے دادی جان کی آواز یہاں سنو، کس درد سے پکارتی ہیں بابا جان سنو، کرتی ہیں کیسے رنجو علم کے بیان سنو، کیا سو رہے ہو بنت نبی کی فغاں سنو، کس منتوں سے کہتی ہے زہرا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، اے جان فاطمہ وہ پیمبر اٹھو اٹھو، اے نور عین فاتح خیبر اٹھو اٹھو، دیکھو اسیر ہو گئی خواہر اٹھو اٹھو، چلا رہی ہے آپ کی دختر اٹھو اٹھو، کیا سو رہے ہو بیٹی کے شہدا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بے آپ کے وطن کو نہ لے جائے اب خدا، کیا خوب ہو جو آئے اس جا میری قضا، بالفرض گر مدینے کو جانا ہوا میرا، کیا میں کہوں جو پوچھیں گی احوال آپ کا، مجھ سے کہے گی فاطمہ صغرا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، پوچھے جو مجھ سے فاطمہ صغرا تو کیا کہوں، پیاسے شہید ہو گئے بابا بیان کروں، اکبر کا میں نے دیکھا ہے لاشا بیان کروں، اصغر کا سر بھی نیزے پر دیکھا بیان کروں، کیا کہے کہ اس کو دوں میں دلاسا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، پاؤں میں چھالے اور وہ صحرائے خاردار، نا طاقتی پیادہ روی جسم میں بخار، گر کر زمیں پر ذوف سے اٹھتا ہے بار بار، اس ناتواں کے ہاتھ سے کھنچواتے ہیں مہار، بیٹے کو تھا اسی لیے پالا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، مشکل کشا کی بیٹی کا بازو ہو اور رسن، زہرا کی بیٹیوں پر ہے یہ رنج اور محن، سر پر نہ چادرے ہونا برقع نہ پیرہن، بازار شام اور تماشائی مرے دو زن، کب تک یہ حال زار رہے گا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، بابا جواب دو میرے بابا جواب دو، صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔ صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله، وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين الأبرار الميامين المظلومين المضطهدين. السلام عليك وعلى ولدك المظلوم أبي عبد الله الحسين، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا غريب يا مظلوم يا عطشان كربلاء. ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم، أمن من لجأ والتجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد أرسلنا إلى من قبلك فأخذناهم بالبأساء والضراء لعلهم يتضرعون، فلولا إذ جاءهم بأسنا تضرعوا ولكن قست قلوبهم وزين لهم الشيطان ما كانوا يعملون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear brothers and sisters, I want to thank you all for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to come back and visit you again. May Allah bless you and reward you for all of your efforts and the ihya and the remembrance of the majalis, of the legacy, of the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah's religion is a code of life that describes a path that you have to take. And any path that you take in life has very clear and explicit do and don't, action and inaction, what is required and what is prohibited. But that is only the overt external amount of action that a person has to engage in. If you have someone in Islam who follows the religion and does so devotedly by adhering to what is wajib, by doing what is required, staying away from that which is prohibited, would you say that that is a person who is a true Muslim? Maybe. They pray, they fast, but they have no feeling inside of them, meaning they're just following the rules. Just like you would follow the rules in a society in which you live, you don't speed, you don't run red lights, you follow the law, etc. But you have no feeling behind it. Yes? Tell me, any one of us who lives in a secular society, if we follow the laws of that society, does that necessarily mean we connect with the moral compass of that society? The answer is probably no. We want to uphold what is lofty, what is correct, what is moral, but that does not mean that it holds a significant meaning to us. That's where Iman is not just about following. Indeed, it begins with obedience to Allah. There is no religion without obedience to God. It is the first step. It is to say we will obey Allah. When Allah tells us anything, we will do it. When He prohibits us from anything, we will not engage in it. But that is the step towards cultivating faith. That faith, it is very complex. And I know it is Friday evening. You have all worked. I also started off the day in North Carolina working before I caught my plane out here. So I know you're all tired. I will try to keep it simple and straightforward tonight. Faith is complex, and it is determined by a lot of things. I don't know how many of you know this, but there was a study done, and I described this a few weeks ago in one of the talks that I was giving, that they looked at different words in Google, how people are described. And not only how people are described, how people view the world. Inherently, there are some people who view the world to be a safe and a good place. Yes? There are some people who have a very positive disposition. There are other people who see the world as being a very negative and a very dangerous place. Doesn't matter what you tell them. They will believe the world to be a negative, a dangerous, a harmful, potentially risky place to be in, where there are others who will believe that, no, this world is full of opportunity. And what they determined was that after going through COVID changed the world. And what would you expect? That after COVID starts to decline and people start to return, that the number of people who believe that the world is a dangerous place, a risky place, would go up, right? Would increase. COVID should have changed everyone's mind. But what the researchers determined was that there was no difference in what people believed in terms of the safety or not safety of this world. COVID didn't change that. Those who believed that the world is a safe and inherently good place continue to do so even after COVID. Those who considered it to be dangerous and risky also considered it to be that way after COVID. Nothing changed. And what they determined was that faith is not determined, is not established by experience. Your belief in something, your belief that something is good or bad, something that exists or doesn't exist, something that is foundational or not foundational, is not determined by experience. It is something that is inherently inside of you already. Islam has been saying this from the beginning, that belief is part of your fitrah. It is part of intrinsically what Allah has sowed into every part of your being. So tonight, I only want to ask one question. Why is it that some believe in Allah and are strong believers in the religion, and some are not? Why is it that you will see two people, one observant of religion, the other not, and yet if you ask both of them, do you believe in God? Both will give the same answer, yes, we believe in God. There are many Muslims today who will eat unhalal food, who will not pray, but if you ask them, do you believe in God? What will they say? They'll say, yes, of course we believe in God. They won't deny God. So then why are they practicing and the others are not? Or this one is adherent and strict and this one is loose. What causes us to be this way? And the Holy Quran, it describes in several ways what happens to insan over the course of their lives that causes them either to adhere or not adhere. But the starting point is the same for everybody. Every insan's starting point is exactly the same. There is no insan that is born a kafir. It's not possible. Because the very fitrah that Allah has put inside of us is sewn into our fabric such that you are born believing. What happens? It's after that that you are made into this or that, or believer or not believer. It is something that shapes you. And that's why people, as they go through life, they are shaped by the education, by the environment, by everything else that they are exposed to. And so the Holy Quran points to this. And inshallah, we'll start it tonight, and I will complete some of what I want to describe tomorrow. The Quran, it points in this holy verse in which Allah is telling Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli. He says, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمَمٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ. We have sent messengers to the communities, the nations before you even, Ya Rasulullah. And the ayah, it says, فَأَخَذْنَاهُمْ بِالْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ. We tested them. We tried them. And we tried them with two things, al-ba'sa'i wal-darra. Ba'sa, when they described the scholars of the Quran, and they explained this, that we sent to communities before you, O Rasul, from the beginning of time, we sent messengers, we sent prophets, sending the message, calling people to believe in Allah. In those communities, we tested the people with two things. One is ba'sa, the other is darra. Al-ba'sa, the scholars, they define, is a trial, a difficulty, a pain that is external, okay, that relates to your body, to your physical body or the external world around you, the physical part of your life, that causes you pain, that causes you suffering. Ad-darra, it's described, is the internal aspect. So what you might consider loosely as psychological pain, okay, emotional pain. So it may not be due to anything that is happening to you physically in the world, but that is related to your mind, your emotions, and what you suffer as a human being internally, inside of your body. So these two things happen, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, we did so for a specific purpose. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ. So that these people, the ones who were afflicted, can humble themselves, can be in a state of humility, they can fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when you say fear, you say that they have become humble. Why? Because you have recognized your position with respect to God. Okay? And that is the source of our problem today. That why you have one person who is a true believer and the other is not, is because the one who really is bowing their head in front of God the way they are supposed to, has understood who they are and who is Allah. They know their own position. They know what they believe, and they know what their stance is or their status is in front of God. Whereas the other has believed themselves to be something that they are not. And that intrinsically is the problem with insan, is that we take ourselves to be something we are not. It is reported, there is a report, a hadith that describes once that a man, he saw Isa alayhi salam worshipping near the side of a river or like a lake or something like that. And he was watching him from a distance, and Isa alayhi salam finished his prayers, his worship, and began to walk, so the man followed him. As he started to walk, it's reported that Isa alayhi salam turned towards the direction of the water and started to walk on top of the water. Now, he didn't sink into the water, he didn't go into the water, he was walking on the surface of the water, on top of the water. And as he's doing this, the man keeps following. The man also realizes that he now also is walking on top of the water. He's walking on top of the water, and as he's walking on top of the water, he is coming close to Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. Suddenly, his feet give out and he falls into the water. He goes from the top of the water into the water, he starts to drown because he cannot swim. So Isa alayhi salam hears him, flailing his arms. He turns around, goes, puts his hand into the water, pulls him out, brings him to the shore. The man catches his breath after some moments, and he says, O Ruh Allah, I was watching you from so far away. You started walking, I followed you. You started walking on top of the water, and I started following you, and I was on top of the water until suddenly I fell in. How did this happen? What happened? How is it that I was walking 1 second on top of the water, and then suddenly I fell into the water and started drowning? Isa alayhi salam, he says, the minute you fell into the water, you were walking on top of the water, and then suddenly you fell in and you started to drown. He says, it's because you started to think about yourself something that you are not. You started to think of yourself a position that you have not been allotted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Allah brought you down. And you started to drown, yes? And so you see what the Quran even states, that why is it that God tests us and puts pain on us? Because we've drifted away from the path of Allah. We've moved away from that path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not only have we moved away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't have inside of us resilience, my dear brothers and sisters. So the ones who succeed, the ones who are faced with this ba'sa and dar'a, are the ones who have achieved certain qualities. They have certain strength in them. Now, I give this example a lot. I don't know, are there any engineers here? No engineers? Oh, good, some engineers. You structural engineer, civil engineer, software engineer. Okay, this may apply to that. This example I see in the back also. Whenever you build something, you design something that has a function, yes? What do? You theoretically design it, you put a blueprint, you put it together, you create it, whatever it is you are making, right? And then you just go out and you say, go ahead, people, use it. You just release it to everybody, no? Piece of software. Let's say it's a structural engineer, you built a bridge or a building or something like that, some infrastructure. You will build it, you design it, you say, go build it and let people use it immediately. No, what do? You test it, right? You test it with what? You test to make sure that, one, it achieves what it's supposed to achieve, what it was designed for, but also that it can withstand what? Errors, stress, no? When you build a bridge, what's the use of that bridge if the wind blows and it comes collapsing down? It could be the most beautiful bridge in the world. But if the wind blows, or there are too many cars at one time and it collapses, what's the good of that bridge? It's useless. It's useless because it failed the stress test. It has no resilience. The same goes for the human body, no? How do you know insan is as healthy as they should be? Physically healthy. I'm not a young man anymore, clearly. Someone my age goes to the doctor, right? Yes, to a cardiovascular specialist. At my age, cardiovascular disease is the main thing to worry about. You go, what do they do to you? How do they determine if you have issues with your cardiovascular system, if you have underlying cardiovascular disease? They put you on a treadmill, right? They run you, and then they do some echocardiography or they look at some imaging of the vasculature, and they see what sort of response your body has to stress. If your body responds well to stress, can compensate, you're considered what? Healthy. My dear brothers and sisters, Iman is the same way. Your faith is the same way. How do you know you have faith? How do you know your faith is strong? When you're sitting on your couch, life is good? When Allah has given you your chai to drink at the end of the night, your food is brought to you, you have a roof over your head, everything is good and happy, that will determine your faith? That will not determine your faith. Your faith will be determined when the boat is being rocked at its hardest. And it is in those moments that you are being asked, how resilient is your faith? Those who are weak of faith will collapse. They will go in a direction they are not supposed to. Whereas those who have deep faith inside of them will say, this is a means by which my faith has to get stronger. It is that stress test that my faith requires. It is what will cause me to strengthen on my path. Why? Because then the next time anything comes to shake my life, I am prepared for it. So the body needs that stress that will determine how strong your faith is. And not only that, but it has to have one very strong quality, and I will explain this quality in a different manner to you tonight. It must have sabr. And you'll say, well, sabr, yes. Sabr its translation just means patience, but let me explain it to you in a little different way. In the story of Nuh alayhi salam, Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, how many years did he spend in his mission? Hundreds of years. Over 1,000 in some riwayat, all told, over 1,000 years. 950 the Quran says, but beyond that he was already 300 years before he started to preach to the people. So well over 1,000 years he had lived. Now imagine how difficult that is. We can't live 60 years and survive and deal with the rigors of life. Yet look at how great of a story he has. Now, after preaching for many, many, many years, and the people not believing him, and the people pelting him with stones, you know why he was called Nuh, right? His name was not Nuh. Nuh is just a title given to him. His name is Nuh. Why? Because he used to weep a lot out of fear of Allah. But the people, it is reported, they will pelt him with stones and rocks so much that he will become buried under a pile of rocks and remain there for 3 days. Imagine the difficulty. And we're not talking 1, 2 days, few weeks, few months. We're talking years, decades on end. So finally, his community who were facing the same persecution, they came to him. They said, Ya Nabi Allah Nuh, how much more can we take? Persecution, tyranny, harm, people beating us, throwing rocks at us, hurling insults at us. So they say, pray to Allah, tell us to give us some relief. We need some relief. It's too difficult. So the wahi, it comes, it's reported. It says, look, plant some trees. When you plant those trees, the trees will grow after some time. When the fruits of those trees come out, your relief will be there. When the fruits finally come out, the relief will come. The people, they say, oh good, finally, we have something to look forward to. They go plant the trees grow. Many years go by, decades go by, we're talking trees. They're not gonna grow in 1 year so fast. It takes years. These trees grow, the fruits come out. When the fruits come out, they pick the fruit, they go to Nuh, they said, we did what you told us. The fruits are here, where is the relief? The wahi, it comes down again, it says, Nuh, go tell them to take the seeds from the fruit, plant the seeds in the ground, grow more trees, and then when you grow more trees, more fruits will come, and then the relief will come for you. They hear this. Some of them say, this is craziness. You promised us relief when the fruits came. You promised us to have relief. Many of them leave. They leave the religion. They abandon Nuh alayhi salam. But some stay. They take the fruit, they remove the seeds, they plant it, they grow more. Again, the second set of trees, they grow. Again, the second set of trees have fruits come out. These people bring the fruit. Same thing happens. They say, look, the fruit has come out. Ya Nuh, you promised us. Now tell us what to do. Again, the wahi comes down. It says, Nuh, tell them to take the fruit, remove the seeds, plant the seeds, and once the trees again come out the third time, then you will get relief. Another set of people, they go running for the hills. They say, this is too much work. It's too difficult. It's too difficult. But some remain. They take the seeds, they plant, they grow the trees. Finally, the third time, when the trees have grown, the fruits have come out, then finally, it's reported that Nuh is instructed to tell them, cut the trees and build the ark. But how many already had abandoned Nuh alayhi salam? How many of them already had gone? Why? Because they couldn't take the difficulty of the circumstance. Because they were looking for relief now, when relief could be in 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You will not know unless you have resilience. And that's why you see even the Holy Quran, it describes that what is the dua of Nuh alayhi salam through this entire period. Nuh's dua, as the Quran says, he would say, Anni maghlubun fantasir. I am defeated, my Lord. My Allah, I am defeated. You give me success. You give me victory. My dear brothers and sisters, we should be reciting this dua. Anni maghlubun fantasir. God, I am defeated. You give me success. I am defeated. And when I say that you need resilience, but that you need sabr, my dear brothers and sisters, sabr is just patience as a definition. When you see the word sabr, what does sabr mean? Sabr means that you control your nafs so that it does not go out of control. What happens when difficulty comes? You become bewildered. You start to lose control of yourself, and you start to choose paths or means by which you can remove the pain in your life, and by some circumstances you transgress the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why sabr is to control your nafs. It is to ensure that your nafs stays on the spot that you want it to stay. And that's why that sabr is not easy. Now, those are the few things that distinguish believers from those who may have weak belief or no belief. One is resilience. You will know that you're a believer not when life is easy, but when life is difficult. That's when you will know who is a believer. You will know because you can stay the course and you can have patience. But the other thing, my dear brothers and sisters, is that how distracted are you? Now in our life, honestly tell me, how much bala and difficulty is there? Allah has not put much bala on us. Alhamdulillah, we live easy lives. We don't live like people living in a war zone. We don't live like people who have drought and famine and flood and people suffering. Our lives are relatively easy. Everything is provided. So then how do we determine whether we have faith or don't have faith? Or whether we are on the path of faith or not? The Holy Quran, it mentions, and it gives you another marker. I told you, one marker is resilience. The other marker is sabr, as I defined to you. The third marker, I will tell you a story. They say after the shahada of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, that Qambar, who was the attendant of Amir al-Mu'mineen, now was an old man, it's related. Many years after the demise of Imam Ali. They say Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, who sadly a lot of Muslims, they take pride that he was a great general and he was a conqueror and this and that, and he was a murderer. He was a tyrant. There is no other words to describe who he was. He was a tyrant and a murderer. He came, he captured, he asked some of his men that who of the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib are still alive. So one of them said, Qanbar is still alive. He was the attendant. He was young man at the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He is still alive, and he is still devoted to the path of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the way of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam. So he has him caught and brought. He's tied with the ropes in front of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu was-salam, in front of Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Al-Hajjaj, he says, I hear that you were a devout follower of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Qanbar looks at him, he says, yes, I was. Hajjaj, he says to him, it is my task to eradicate, to kill all the followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib. So Qanbar, he says, do what you will. You cannot harm me. At most, you will take my life. I will be reunited with my master. Hajjaj, he says to him, tell me, what did you do for your master Ali ibn Abi Talib? Qanbar, he says, I would go and I would bring the jug of water for him so that he can do his wudu. Qanbar is being humble. He says, I would bring the water for my master to do his wudu. So Hajjaj, he says, tell me, what did your master used to say? When he was doing his wudu, what would he say in those moments? Recount to me his words. So Qanbar, he says, my master would quote the ayah of the Holy Quran. And it is the ayah that I recited to you in the beginning. And I will give you the first ayah and then the one that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he recites. And now this is Qanbar. He's telling Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. The ayah, what does it say? As I said to you, quoted to you in the beginning. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمَمٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ فَأَخَذْنَاهُمْ بِالْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ. To you, before you, O Muhammad, we sent many messengers to the nations before you. We took them with trial, externally and internally. Why? So that these people could be humble. So they can have tadarru'. They can be humble and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The very next ayah, it says, فَلَوْلَا إِذْ جَاءَهُمْ بَأْسُنَا تَضَرَّعُوا وَلَكِنْ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. The very next ayah, it says, these very nations that were afflicted, it says, they would have humbled themselves in front of God. They would have, potentially. They would have humbled themselves, but something happened. What happened? قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. Their hearts became hard. And shaitan made what they were doing in the life of this world look beautiful to them. Ya Allah. Their hearts became hard, and their actions to themselves were very beautiful, even though they were disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what does the ayah describe? Hardness of the heart, and you being so enamored and so happy with your actions that you don't even know what direction you're going. So now when Qanbar is asked by Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi that what would your Mawla Ali ibn Abi Talib say when he's doing his wudu, he says he would quote the ayah, فَلَمَّا نَسُوا مَا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ فَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ أَبْوَابَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ حَتَّى إِذَا فَرِحُوا بِمَا أُوتُوا. He quotes the very next ayah after these two that I recited to you, that when they forgot, when these people, these nations that God had tested them, why? So they can be humble. When they forgot what Allah constantly was reminding them, constantly He was reminding them, they forgot it. What did Allah do for them? He opened the door of everything to them. He gave it to them. He opened the door of everything to them. حَتَّى إِذَا فَرِحُوا بِمَا أُوتُوا. So much so that they became happy with everything that God had given to them. أَخَذْنَاهُمْ بَغْتَةً فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْلِسُونَ. The ayah, it says, suddenly we grabbed them, we caught them. Suddenly we caught them, we grabbed them. The master, when the companion, he comes and asks his master, Al-Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam, it is reported that, Yabna Rasulillah, how is it that you see the state of those people who are being directed correctly, and I am paraphrasing the hadith, going in the right direction, and those who are not? Imam, it's reported, he says that when Allah sees someone is insistent on going in the wrong direction, meaning they are committing a sin, after they commit the sin, He gives them what they want so they can be happy. After they commit the sin, Allah opens the door for them, gives them what they want. Why? So that they can continue down the path of darkness that they have chosen for themselves. My dear brothers and sisters, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, he kills Qanbar. He kills him. But look at the warning. He says to him, I know that your master Ali, he meant this ayah for us. And Qanbar says, yes, indeed, he meant it for you. The question is, are we amongst them? Such that Allah has opened the door for us. He has expanded everything, provided everything, and we are going headlong without realizing which direction we're going. That is what determines mu'min from non-mu'min, strong belief from weak belief. I'm not saying that you don't benefit from the rizq of Allah. If Allah has given you rizq, you take it, you thank Him. But you don't become so enamored, so happy by it, that suddenly when God catches you, you are left at a loss. That's something that is very dangerous, that can grab us and take us in the wrong direction. And that state is the state that Imam Hussain was warning against. Was he not? He wasn't warning kafir. He wasn't warning any of those men who stood in front of Imam Hussain on the day of Ashura. If anyone asked them, who do you believe in? What would their answer have been? Allah. Who is your prophet? Rasulullah. What is your book? Quran. Do you believe in Akhirah? Yes. Will any of them say anything different? It will be the same answer as the men standing next to Al-Hussain. So then what's the difference? Why is there a difference? Because one, Allah opened the doors for them and said, go into your blindness. Go into your darkness. You may claim to believe, but that darkness, I have opened the door, you are going headlong into it. And then you have men standing next to Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam, who they say everything they have let go of. It is related, some of the books relate this, you know this, that when Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he left Mecca and he stopped close to a place called Tan'im. I think it was Tan'im where he had stopped and this occurred. That there was a caravan coming from Sham going to Yemen. Actually the other direction, Yemen to Sham. And the governor of Yemen was sending gifts for Yazid. So Imam Hussain, he took it. He grabbed those possessions. Now, some people ask this question that, well, is this not usurpation? That he went and stole property that was not his? Well, the justification for this is that Imam Hussain was the Imam. So he had the right by Allah to take something that did not belong to Yazid. Moreover, Yazid was a despot. He was in that position illegally. So he had no right to take these gifts that came from the Muslim people of Yemen. So Imam took it. That's not the point. The point is Imam takes it, it's reported, and he possesses it. Now, not only does he possess it, it's reported it stays with him, whatever these possessions were. It stays with him. Fast forward to the day of Ashura. It's reported that on the day of Ashura, one of his companions, who is ready with him to fight on the battlefield of Karbala, word comes that his son has been taken hostage in Persia. And that he's being held, and that if his freedom is not paid for, they're going to kill his son. So Imam Hussain, he calls his companion, it's reported. He says, look, we have these possessions. Take them, go free your son. Go, I release you. Go, I release you. Take these possessions that we took, that were illegally being sent to Yazid. We have taken them. You take these, go and get the freedom of your son. This companion, he looks at Imam Hussain, and it's reported, he says, with what face am I going to stand in front of Rasulullah if I take these and go free my son when you are standing here with death right in front of you? Allah opens the door in front of us, but sometimes we have to ask the question, is that opening of the door a test? Is He reminding us that we are going in the wrong direction, and that's why He's saying, be careful? We have to examine this carefully, because this is the struggle of Ashura. This is the struggle of Karbala. This is the struggle of Imam Hussain. Is to distinguish belief from disbelief, from sincerity from those who have ulterior motives. And that's why you see even their actions after the events of the martyrdom of Imam Hussain are so clear to point to their fallacy. They say, after Imam Hussain is killed and his body is lying on the ground of Karbala, there were men there who even before the istishhad were on the side of Imam Hussain. We know this. There were men who in the middle of the battle left the side of Umar ibn Sa'ad la'natullahi alayhi and came to the side of Imam Hussain in the middle of the battle. There were some men who could not even leave the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad because there were too many men and they could not escape. So they started fighting from inside the middle of Umar ibn Sa'ad's army. So there were men who were true, who were with Imam Hussain, and difficulty did not stop them. There were men on the other side, who no matter what you tell them about salvation, about God's path, about what is the truth, about what is haqq, they didn't care. There were men like Qurra ibn Qais al-Handali. Qurra ibn Qais was a friend of Habib ibn Madahir. Some say he was an acquaintance. And that when he came and gave the letter of Umar ibn Sa'ad to Imam Hussain, he did so, and as he's walking back with the answer of Imam al-Hussain, Habib ibn Madahir, he asks Imam Hussain's permission. He says, Yabna Rasulillah, do you allow me to speak to this man? I know him from Kufa. Imam Hussain, he says, go Habib. Habib ibn Madahir, he catches up to Qurra ibn Qais as he's walking back to the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. He says, oh Qurra, he says, what is it, how is it I see you on that side? On the side of the enemy, the side of batil, of injustice, of tyranny, of everything that is against our religion. Come and join us. Because if you don't, you will lose salvation. You will not get to Jannah. Qurra ibn Qais al-Handali, it's described, he says to Habib, I will think about the matter. In the end, it is Qurra ibn Qais al-Handali who reports how the women were being gathered as prisoners after the death of Imam Hussain. He did not join Imam Hussain. It is he who reports the burning of the tents in many cases. So there were those types of men as well, who may have not have taken a fight in the battle, but were reporting from the side. One of those men was a man named Hamid ibn Muslim. Hamid ibn Muslim reports, he says that after the killing of Al-Hussein, the tents were burned. And after the tents were burned, he says the ladies, the family, the daughters of Rasulullah, they began to run. And as they began to run, the soldiers of Umar ibn Sa'ad started to round them up, grab them, and bring them into one place and tie them. He says, it's reported, he says, that as I was watching the scene, I saw a little girl running in the desert. He says her clothes were burning. Her dress was burning. It had fire. He says, I went behind her, running behind her to try to put the fire. She turned around scared. When she saw me coming behind her, she turned around. She said, Ya Shaykh, hal anta lana am alayna? She says, oh stranger, are you on our side or are you against us? A little child, 3 years old, what do they know? They only know that there is some who are on the side of your father and that there are some who are against your father. That's all you know. She says, Ya Shaykh, anta lana am alayna? Are you with us or are you against us? Hamid ibn Muslim, he says, Ya bunayya ana la lakum wa la alaykum. Walakin idha indik haja aqdiha. He says, little girl, I am not on your side, I am not against you. But if you have a need, I will fulfill it for you. They say the little girl, she hears this. She says to him, إِذَنْ يَا شَيْخ دُلَّنِي إِلَى دَرْبِ النَّجَفِ. She says, oh Shaykh, if you really want to help me, if you are here to provide us with help, tell me where is the road to Najaf? He says to her, Ya bunayya, darb al-Najaf ba'id alayki. Little girl, the road to Najaf is too far. You cannot go there. You cannot walk to Najaf. He says to her, why do you want to go to Najaf? She says to him, Ya Shaykh, I want to go to my grandfather Ali. I want to tell him what has happened to us here. He says to her, the road is too far for you to make it. The distance is very far for you to go. She says, إِذَنْ يَا شَيْخ إِذَنْ يَا شَيْخ دُلَّنِي إِلَى مصرع أبي عبد الله الحسين. Oh Shaykh, if Najaf, as you say, is too far for me to walk, then tell me where is the place where the final stand of Al-Hussein was. Where is the body of my father Al-Hussein? The Rawi, he describes that when all the ladies were captured, all of them were brought into one place. The hands are tied with the ropes. The aghlal, the chains are placed around the necks. Only one person is missing. And the call of Al-Hawra Al-Aqila Zainab Al-Kubra, the aunt who is responsible for everyone, calling out saying, Ya Sukaina, Ya Sukaina, Aina Anti. Where are you, O Sukaina? It may be that this Sukaina, who is used to sleeping on the chest of her father Al-Hussain, is lying on the body, but there is no head on the body of Al-Hussain. This same Sukaina, these children were brought from Karbala to Kufa, and Kufa up to Sham. Sahal ibn Sa'ad, he describes, it is reported that I came to Sham in Safar, and when I saw the city, it is as if they were celebrating. The banners and the flags had been placed, as if there was some celebration, some victory. I saw in front of me the army, the soldiers had brought some prisoners with them, and as I neared to the gate, I saw that the ladies who were present, they were the prisoners. There were 20 or so prisoners, most of them ladies, and a few young girls who were being made to march to the door of Sham. I rode up to them. I came up to them and I said to them, Ana Sahl ibn Sa'ad. I am Sahl ibn Sa'ad, صاحب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. I am one of the old companions of Rasulullah. He was a very old man. He says, if you have any need, O prisoners, tell me and I will help you. He describes that one young girl, she came forward from amongst the prisoners. She said to him, Oh, Ya Ibn Sa'ad, قل لصاحب هذا الرأس أن يقدم أمامنا حتى يشتغلوا عيون الناس بالنظر إليه ولا على بنات رسول الله. She comes forward and she says to him, this enemy soldier who is holding the spear with the head on top of the spear, tell him to move forward and away from us. Tell him to go way ahead so that the eyes of the people keep looking at the head and not at the daughters of Rasulullah. But Shimr la'natullahi alayh, he brought the head and he placed it between the daughters of Rasulullah, the ladies of the Ahl al-Bayt. They were brought into the Khariba of Sham. My dear brothers and sisters, Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham. The difficulty of that prison, that Khariba, the sun beating down on the daughters of Rasulullah. They say in the middle of the night, these were the most difficult moments, when that daughter of Al-Hussain only wants the chest of her father to sleep on. Until the Rawi, he reports that one night she wakes up screaming, saying, Ya Abata, Aina anta ya Hussain? My father, where are you? The cries of Sukaina reach the castle. Yazid la'natullahi alayh, he calls the attendant, he says, who is making this noise in the middle of the night? The attendant, he says, this is the 3-year-old daughter of Al-Hussain ibn Ali. She is crying and wailing. Yazid, he says, what is it she wants in the middle of the night? The attendant, he says, she is asking only for one thing. He says, what is that? The attendant, he answered, she is only asking for Al-Hussain. She is asking only for her father. Yazid, he says, give her what she wants. The cursed soldiers, they come down to the prison, bringing with them a tray that is covered with a cloth. Opening the door, they place the tray into the prison. Sukaina bint al-Hussain sees the tray covered with the cloth. She says to them, I am not hungry, take this away. I do not want food. Remove this tray. When finally the cursed soldier, he pulls the cloth off of the tray. فرأت سكينة رأس أبيها الحسين. Hussein's head is in front of Sukaina. فأخذت برأس أبيها وضمته إلى صدرها وبدأت بالبكاء والعويل. She took the head of her father. She brought it close to her chest. She began to cry and weep, saying, "Wa abata." أيوة حسينا يا أبا من فعل بك هذا. My father, who has done this to you? يا أبا لقد بددوا شملنا لقد استباحوا حرمتنا. My father, they have violated our sanctity. My father, they have mistreated us. يا أبا لقد أيتموني يا أبا وأنا بعض طفلا. My father, they have made me into an orphan, and I am just a little girl. وأبتا. And the ruh leaves the body of Sukaina. She is buried there in the Khariba of Sham. ألا ولعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا على محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. إن لله وإنا إليه راجعون. باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك ونقسم عليك بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها لعن الله ظالميها. اللهم شافي كل مريض. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك يا كريم. اللهم وفقنا لمراضيك وجنبنا معاصيك وثبت أقدامنا على صراطك المستقيم وخذ بأيدينا إليك يا أرحم الراحمين. وفرج عنا يا الله فرجا عاجلا قريبا كلمح البصر وهو أقرب من ذلك. وافرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
हर दुरूद और हर सलाम मादरे हुसैन तेरे नाम। हर दुरूद और हर सलाम मादरे हुसैन तेरे नाम। हर दुरूद और हाँ वो फातिमा आरज़ूए क़ल्ब मुस्तफ़ा जिसके लाडले हसन हुसैन जिसकी बेटियां फलक मकाम। हर दुरूद और हर सलाम मादरे हुसैन तेरे नाम। हर کٹ رہا تھا حلق شاہدی، چل رہا تھا خنجر لئیں، بی بی آپ دیکھتی رہی، لٹ گئے حرم جلے خیام، ہر درود اور ہر سلام مادر حسین تیرے نام، ہر درود اور خواہر حسین تیرے نام، ہر درود ثانی جناب سیدہ، اللہ اللہ تیرا حوصلہ، خوب کی حفاظت حرم، بعد قتل سید انام، ہر درود اور ہر سلام خواہر حسین تیرے نام، ہر درود خواہر حسین بی بی غم اٹھائے ہیں بہت، دل پہ داغ کھائے ہیں بہت، تجھ پہ اے حسین کی بہن ہو گئیں مصیبتیں تمام، ہر درود اور ہر سلام خواہر حسین تیرے نام، ہر درود خواہر حسین تیرے میتیں بڑی ہیں بے کفن، کیا کرے حسین کی بہن، بے کسی اور ایسی بے کسی، شام اور کربلا کی شام، ہر درود اور ہر سلام خواہر حسین تیرے نام، ہر درود اور ہر سلام دختر حسین تیرے نام، ہر درود اور ہر سلام شمر کے تماچے کھائے ہیں، بی بی کتنے غم اٹھائے ہیں، باپ کی جدائی کم نہ تھی، تجھ پہ قید کے ستم تمام، ہر درود اور ہر سلام دختر حسین تیرے نام، ہر درود دختر حسین تیرے اور بی بی آپ پر ستم ہوئے، مر گئیں پدر کا غم لیے، ہائے جیتے جی نہ چھٹ سکا قید خانہ امیر شام، ہر درود اور ہر سلام دختر حسین تیرے نام، ہر درود اور یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ، السلام علیکم ابن رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم ابن امیر المؤمنین وابن سید الوسیین، السلام علیکم ابن فاطمة الزہراء سیدۃ النساء العالمین، السلام علیکم سائر الشہداء کربلا، خصوصاً سیدی و مولاي یا ابا الفضل العباس یا ابن امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم یا غریب الغرباء، السلام علیکم یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام علیکم یا سلطان یا ابا الحسن یا علی ابن موسیٰ ایھا الرضا، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ، السلام علیکم یا صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام علیکم یا شریک القرآن، السلام علیکم یا امام الانس والجان، عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسهل اللہ تعالی مخرجک وظہورک، السلام علیکم وعلی آبائک الطیبین الطاہرین، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ۔ اللہم صلی اللہ